Hey everyone, welcome to the show. So, have you ever imagined, a world where everything we rely on just vanishes?
Mm.
I mean, no electricity, no way to call for help, and danger lurking around every corner.
Yeah, it's a pretty unsettling thought.
Totally unsettling.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the kind of scenario that Blackout Nation, Darkness Descends, throws at us.
Oh, yeah. This book, it's a total page turner, a post-apocalyptic thriller that really gets under your skin.
Definitely a thriller. And if you're loving these deep dives, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. You can grab a copy of the book on Amazon. We'll put the link in the description below.
So, what makes this book so gripping is how it just drops you right into the heart of the disaster. I mean, within the first few pages, boom, an EMP knocks out the power grid across the entire nation and everything goes dark.
Yeah, and suddenly it's like every man for himself.
Exactly. And we see this firsthand through the eyes of our main characters. You've got Sarah, a former combat medic who's now got to protect her 8-year-old nephew, Devon.
And then there's Jake. He's like this prepper dude, the kind who's always ready for the end of the world.
Oh, yeah, Jake's got the whole bunker and stockpile thing going on. He offers Sarah and Devon shelter in his fortified
What
house.
seems like a pretty good idea at the time.
Right. But then you've also got Mrs. Henderson, Sarah's elderly neighbor. She's all alone, and Sarah's torn about what to do.
Yeah, that's where the first big moral dilemma hits you.
Yeah.
Does Sarah risk her own safety and Devon's to check on Mrs. Henderson?
Tough call. It really highlights Sarah's character, that sense of responsibility she feels even in the middle of this crazy situation.
You could totally feel how heavy that decision weighs on her, especially when they're forced to leave Mrs. Henderson behind. And then later when they go back,
Uh,
her house is completely empty, ransacked, looted,
yeah.
and there's this bloody handprint on the railing.
Chilling. It really drives home how quickly things are falling apart. The blackout happened just hours ago, and already we see violence and desperation taking over.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, what would you do in that situation? How do you balance your own need to survive with the urge to help others?
Right. It's a question that really sticks with you.
And then things take another turn for the worse. Just when you think it can't get any more intense, this military convoy shows up on their street.
Oh, wow.
2 huge cargo trucks. But the second one, it's full of people. Civilians, their hands tied, looking terrified.
So they're not there to help?
It's not clear at all. I mean, are they rescuers or are they something else entirely?
That's what's so unsettling. The author doesn't give you any easy answers. You're left wondering who to trust, who's really in control.
And where are they headed? Memorial Stadium. It's been turned into this fortified base, a symbol of power in this new world. And we meet their leader, this guy named Marcus,
What's he like?
cold, calculating. He sees people as just resources, assets to be used.
I bet he loved the blackout. Sounds like the kind of guy who thrives on chaos.
Yeah, maybe. And what's really disturbing is his focus on capturing specific people. Doctors, nurses, anyone with valuable skills.
So he's building up his own little army.
It seems that way. And then comes the moment that just makes your stomach drop. Jake overhears some of Marcus's men talking. They know about Sarah, they know she's a combat medic, and they're planning to take her.
Oh, man.
Suddenly being holed up in Jake's house doesn't seem so safe anymore.
Yeah, that's a huge turning point in the story. Now they're not just trying to survive the blackout, they're being actively hunted.
And their escape from Jake's house is pure chaos. Gunfire, a desperate scramble to protect Devon. And then Jake is forced to make an impossible decision.
What happens?
Their neighbor, Stevie Scanlon, he's been badly injured. There's no way to help him, and he's just suffering. So Jake, he has to put him out of his misery.
Oh, wow. That's heavy.
It really is. It shows the brutal choices this new world forces upon them.
There's no right or wrong anymore, just survival.
And their only way out is through the storm drains. Dark, claustrophobic, the water rising all around them. It's like descending into the bowels of this collapsing city.
And it's there, in the tunnels, that they run into Maya.
Maya, who's that?
She's a teenage girl who's managed to survive on her own so far. And get this, she credits her survival skills to playing this post-apocalyptic video game called Aftermath.
You're kidding. Life imitating art.
Seriously. It makes you think, what if our fascination with these dystopian stories is actually preparing us for something real?
That's a bit freaky to think about.
Hmm.
But Maya's story also reveals something else about Marcus and his plan. He's not just targeting people with skills.
What else is he looking for?
Maya's parents, they were Russian immigrants. They were taken first because Marcus needed translators. It's like he's trying to build a new society based on Well, I don't know, some kind of messed up purity test.
Ugh, that's just wrong. It's like all the worst parts of human nature are coming out in this crisis.
Yeah, and just when they think they found a safe haven in Maya's hideout.
This doesn't sound good.
It's in the basement of the hospital.
Mm.
Maya's pretty resourceful. She's got supplies, a way to stay hidden. But then the episode ends with Marcus's men closing in.
Oh man, what a cliffhanger. So they're trapped again.
Basically. It's like every time they think they've found a way to stay one step ahead, Marcus finds a way to close the gap. Talk about intense.
It's like even with everything falling apart, you see these little moments of humanity and hope.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Like when Devon offers Maya some of his candy bar.
Right, it's just this small gesture, but it just shows you that even in the darkest of times, there's still some good left in people.
Yeah, it's like a tiny spark of light in all this darkness. Makes you wonder if that's what keeps us going.
For sure. And it's not just the kids either, Sarah, too. I mean, she's being hunted. She's got to protect her nephew, but she still manages to stay strong.
She's definitely the tough one in the group.
Yeah.
No doubt her medical training and all that combat experience comes in handy.
It's like she's got this inner strength that just won't quit. It makes you wonder, what is it about some people that allows them to thrive in these crazy situations,
I know, it's fascinating. And speaking of thriving, Maya's hideout, it's surprisingly well stocked. Canned food, water, even medical supplies.
Yeah.
It's like she was ready for this.
It's almost like her experience with that video game Aftermath gave her like a blueprint for survival.
Wow, it really does make you think about the ways we might be preparing for the future without even realizing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe all those dystopian novels and movies we love are actually some kind of subconscious training.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting idea. But let's not forget about Jake. He's kind of the quiet, steady presence in the group, always thinking tactically.
And his knowledge of the city is proving to be pretty useful too.
But his militia background, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, isn't it? On one hand, he understands how guys like Marcus think.
But on the other hand, he could be a target himself.
Exactly. It's like he's walking this tightrope, trying to figure out where his loyalties lie.
Yeah, it adds a whole layer of complexity to his character. Makes
Mhm.
you wonder what he'll do when push comes to shove.
Definitely. But even with Maya's supplies and Jake's tactical skills, they're still stuck in that hospital basement. Like, what are their options at this point?
Right. It feels like they're trapped between a rock and a hard place.
I mean, escaping the city, that seems pretty risky with Marcus controlling all the exits.
And finding another hideout in the city. Well, that's not exactly a walk in the park either, with looters and who knows what else out there.
It's like they're damned if they do and damned if they don't.
So what's the best move? Any ideas?
Well, maybe their best bet is to try and gather more information, figure out what Marcus is really up to, maybe find some weaknesses or potential allies within the city.
Yeah, knowledge is power, especially in a situation like this.
Mhm.
But the problem is gathering intel takes time, and time is something they don't have a lot of.
Totally. They're in a race against the clock. The longer they stay put, the higher the chance of being discovered.
It's a tough call.
Yeah.
Do they risk exposure to get more info, or do they just make a run for it and hope for the best?
That's where Sarah and Jake's skills come in. Sarah's good at assessing risk, and Jake's got that strategic mind. They'll have to weigh their options carefully.
And we can't forget about the mental and emotional toll this is all taking on them. It's got to be exhausting living in a constant state of fear and uncertainty.
Oh, absolutely. They've witnessed some horrific stuff, and they're making life or death decisions every day. It's a lot to handle.
I mean, it really makes you think, what does it take to survive in a world like this? Not just physically, but mentally and emotionally.
What qualities do you think are essential?
It's kind of crazy how even in this total disaster, you still see these little sparks of hope and connection.
It really is. It's like that moment with Devon offering Maya some of his candy bar. It just gets to me.
I know, right? It's like even in the middle of all this darkness, he's still thinking about someone else. It's pretty powerful.
It really is, especially when you contrast it with Marcus and his whole approach. I mean, talk about cold and calculating.
Yeah, speaking of Marcus, the fact that he's targeting people based on their ethnicity, that just adds a whole new level of messed up to his plan.
Totally. It's like he's not just trying to survive anymore.
Yeah.
He's trying to create some kind of purified society. It's scary to think about.
It really is. It makes you wonder how easily we could fall back into those kinds of prejudices, Like we all like to think we'd be the ones helping out, offering our candy bars.
Yeah.
But history shows that it's not always the case.
Yeah, it's a sobering thought for sure. And it makes you question, what would I do in that situation? Would I stand up for what's right, or would I just look out for myself?
I think that's a question we all have to ask ourselves.
Yeah.
And as we see our characters trapped in that hospital basement, facing this uncertain future, It feels like it's more than just their own lives at stake.
Right. It's like they represent this microcosm of humanity struggling with these huge choices.
Hmm.
Hope versus despair, collaboration versus division.
It's pretty intense.
Hmm.
And the fact that the author Medbury can weave all these like big societal themes into this fast-paced thriller, it's pretty impressive.
Oh, definitely. He doesn't shy away from the tough questions, and he doesn't give you any easy answers either.
Which I think is what makes this book so good. It stays with you. It makes you think. And as Blackout Nation, Darkness Descends comes to an end, we're left with more than just a cliffhanger. We're left with this like unsettling feeling of possibility. Like we've just glimpsed into a future that could actually happen.
And it leaves you with a lot of questions, too, like what happens next? Will our characters find a way to survive? Will they overcome Marcus and his plan?
Who knows? But that's part of the beauty of it, right? It's up to us to imagine what might happen next. So what do you think? Will our characters make it out okay? What would you do in their shoes? We'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more insightful explorations of the stories that matter.
Thanks for joining us.